Okay.
Do I need to yell a little louder?
No.
This is my normal voice, so I could go a little bit higher. But welcome to our event. We're honored to welcome you to this amazing event hosted by us, Turkish Hub. For the ones who don't know us, we started organizing events like this about a year ago, and we're lucky to have Daron Hoca here tonight. We gather as a community of thinkers, innovators, and change makers to explore the profound ways technology intersects with economics and society. We are privileged to have with us one of the most influential voices of our time, Nobel laureate Professor Daron Acemoglu, whose groundbreaking work has shaped how we understand these critical issues. At Turkish Hub, our mission is to build bridges connecting professionals, entrepreneurs, and organizations across borders, industries, and ideas. We aim to empower individuals and businesses to innovate, grow, and make a life-lasting impact. By fostering collaboration and inspiring dialogue, we create opportunities to address the most pressing challenges of our times. Tonight is a perfect reflection of that vision. I'd like to take a moment to personally thank Professor Acemoglu, not just for his exceptional contributions to the field of economics, but for graciously accepting our invitations to share his insights with us tonight. His presence here is a testament to his generosity and commitment to advancing meaningful conversations about the role of technology in shaping our future. Artificial intelligence is no longer just a tool. It's a transformative force reshaping industries, labor markets, and societies around the world. It brings both opportunities and challenges, and the choices we make today will determine how AI impacts productivity, equality, and prosperity for generations to come. Professor Acemoglu's work reminds us that technology is not a destiny, it's a choice, one that requires thoughtful leadership and collaboration. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, the incredible Turkish Hub team, and all of you who are joining us tonight. Your presence underscores the importance of these discussions and the power of community to inspire change. As we dive into this evening's program, I encourage you to engage fully, ask questions, and reflect on how we can collectively shape a future where technology serves everyone. Now, I would like to pass the microphone to Demet to talk a little bit about her company. She's also our sponsor and is on our advisory board and has been supporting us since we started our organization. Thank you.
Hi everybody. I'm so glad that we are doing all these beautiful people tonight, and I'm so excited about this whole crowd. Oh my God, Daron, thank you so much for joining us. We are so excited, and Tim is here too to give a little bit of information about CIC. But before that, I want to talk about Turkish Hub. It is an amazing group of people here that they're trying to do the network, understanding the life sciences business and all that good fields that brings the whole hub in Boston here together. So I'm so glad that I'm an advisory board member for the Turkish Hub, so thank you so much. But then as US Lab Partners, I have two companies. One is US Lab Partners, one in DK Scientific. We are serving Boston, mostly Philadelphia. We just started. We are members of Philadelphia CIC as well too. So, and San Diego coming soon. So we are a strategy consulting firm helping life sciences companies, laboratory operation facilities, and EHS services. And happy to build labs and hope to understand labs, what their bottlenecks are, and then going in there and understand how we can help so they can do a lot of cost savings, and then we can support them. And then we are so excited about tonight's talk and understanding how AI and digitalization will help the future labs. So I'm so excited. I would like to introduce Tim Rowe, the CEO of the CIC, to give a little bit of information about here, and then thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all for coming. My name is Tim Rowe. I'm the founder of CIC, and they asked me to say a few words about this place and also about our speaker and the importance of what Daron you're about to speak about. For those of you who don't know CIC, this is our 25th year. Actually, this is our 25th anniversary. We are now located in 9 cities around the world, and 5 of them hold a CIC, which is the largest innovation space in that country. So we're now the largest innovation space in the United States, in Germany, in Japan, in the Netherlands, and in Poland. Our vision is to bring innovators together and give them an opportunity to build the social networks that they need to be more successful with their new ideas. We believe that innovation fixes the world, or has the potential to. Not every generation has the opportunity to witness the dawn of an earth-changing technology. Occasionally it happens. If we were around in the late 1800s, we saw two. We saw the invention of the light bulb and the telephone. And at that time, obviously Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell brought technologies that fundamentally shifted how the world worked. By the way, both of them worked together in a building a few blocks from here in Boston at 109 Court Street. They actually hired the same person to do their patent drawings, which says something about the Boston area as a place where this kind of foundational work happens. In our generation, we're witnessing the beginning of something which seems truly transformative to every aspect of business and life. And we're going to hear more of that from our speaker tonight. I'm going to cite one example that some of you may have missed. There was an article in Nature a few weeks ago where they took patient histories from a number of individuals, including blood tests, doctor's notes, and such, and fed them to a panel of distinguished doctors, and they asked them to diagnose what's wrong with these patients. About 74% of the doctors got that right. They then gave the same information off the shelf to ChatGPT, and about 90% were correctly diagnosed. This is the dawn of something really fundamental. This is not a little thing, this is a big thing. And what that implies in terms of how healthcare or any other field will be pursued, it's just, many of us have been following artificial intelligence for decades. We've never seen anything that has the potential for impact quite like it does today. So this is a really big and exciting opportunity. So you heard a little bit about Daron Acemoglu, if I say that, Acemoglu, something like that. Sorry, my Turkish is poor. But I want to say a little bit more. I think some of you know that he's an institute professor at MIT. Not every professor at MIT is an institute professor. This means you're at that very top level of recognition for your work. He's obviously globally renowned as an economist with his research in understanding the political economy, labor, economics, and the impacts of technology on both of those. Most famously, he did receive the Nobel Prize in 2024. For those of you who didn't know that already, congratulations, And that work was focused on understanding the critical role of institutions in driving economic growth and navigating the societal impacts of technological change, which is really what we're talking about right now, right? He is considered a visionary in AI and the future of work. His latest research examines how artificial intelligence influences productivity, inequality, and labor markets. He is an author, amongst others, of Why Nations Fail and Power and Progress. If you haven't read those books, go out and buy them now on Amazon. He is here today to talk about the impacts of AI. He is the recipient of the John Bates Clark Medal and is a member of the National Academy of Sciences. Dr. Acemoglu, welcome.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you. Thanks a lot. can no, I can. From here? Okay, perfect. Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you. Well, it's a great pleasure to be here, and I'm speaking in English, not in Turkish, right?
Yeah.
Yes, perfect. It's a great thank you for the Technology Hub. Thank you to CIC and Tim. Thank you to Ercan for organizing it, and to all the sponsors, and to all of you for being here. So I'm going to briefly, or as briefly as I can, talk about AI, and so that I lay the scene, and then we can also have a little bit of time for Q&A. I guess I'm going to talk about the same things as Tim, but my take might be a little bit more cautious about exactly where we're going and how we can actually reach there. But the transformative changes are, in some sense, visible. This is, the training computation used to train the notable large language models, and you can see the very big takeoff. The amount of computing power here is really mind-boggling. Just to put it into context, it's about 1 billion times the computational power that Apollo control computer had, which was used for landing men on the moon. So, this is really something to take note. And the enthusiasm can also be seen according to many other metrics. So everybody's talking about AI. Since 2022 November, AI searches on Google have increased. Isn't this working?
That one is connected to the
Live stream. This is
Okay.
to the room.
All right. Is this better?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Have increased 10 times, and NVIDIA's stock has also increased 10 times, which really is remarkable. But what is it that we hope from AI models? I will submit to you that the promise of AI is intelligent, reliable, flexible, and context-relevant help for human decision-making. Not to replace doctors, not to replace legal professionals or educators, because I think the promise of that is actually both not as inspiring and not that feasible, at least in the near future, despite all of the talk of AGI, but to act as a flexible amplifier of human skill. But whether we are really on the path to that, how quickly we can get there, those are all questions. I think one of the challenges is that right now only about 5% of US businesses have any investment in AI, so that's going to be not a very fast process, even if all of the capabilities improve. But I think there are other barriers on the way, which I'm going to try to explain. But mine is not going to be a pessimistic take. Hopefully it's more like a realistic, because I'm going to try to indicate what at least I, based on my research, what I think are the directions in which AI can be more impactful in a beneficial way. But I believe that you cannot understand AI in a vacuum. And if you don't recognize what the driving vision or philosophy of AI is, you will be in a vacuum. And that vision goes back to that very inspiring gentleman there, Alan Turing, who is the founder of the field of computer science and of AI. And his big thinking was I apply ideas from his mathematical work on computation to a conceptualization of what computers are about, but also what the thinking of machines could be. So in particular, what is now called a Turing machine is a way of, let's say, architecture very similar to the computers that we have. Let me not go into the details, but it can compute things that are computable in a very simple way with a tape and a binary structure. And the universal Turing machine is a machine that can compute anything that is computable. So essentially the way that Alan Turing thought, well, the human brain is a computation machine. It may have substrates that are genes and neurons and biology, but the substrate doesn't matter. It's a computation machine. So if there is a universal Turing machine, it can do everything that the human brain can do. And that is actually the aspiration of artificial intelligence, as Alan Turing already anticipated when he talked of autonomous machine intelligence, machines doing things, capabilities similar to those of humans, but also autonomous that is self-acting without the control of human operators or human control it. That vision became amplified in 1956 in a Dartmouth project where another set of luminaries, mathematicians, psychologists, and others sort of got together and dreamed of coming up with AI capable of overtaking humans in about a year in Dartmouth. Well, those dreams were dashed, but the dream of AGI and these super powerful machines remain. And I think if this vision is driving us anywhere, it's driving us towards more autonomy of the computer. Automation, computers taking over cognitive, at some point also physical tasks from humans, and also in a self-acting way, not the human-computer collaboration that I was implicitly referring to, and I'll come back to that. Now, this is not just about AI. I would say we're already in the digital innovation age, because many of the computer innovations of the 1990s and 2000s were in a similar vein, although of course, as Tim indicated, nowhere as capable as what the hope with AI is. Well, you can see the promise there. This is indeed the innovation age, not just because you have an app on your phone every 3 minutes, new app, but if you look at other more objective measures of innovation, such as, for example, patents filed, they have increased by more than fourfold since 1980, and it's been driven by electricity and electronics, and the communication and information technology. Those sectors that are really at the heart of providing tools for the remaining sectors of the economy. But the dividends from that have been somewhat disappointing. So the economist's favorite measure of productivity enhancement, total factor productivity growth, which says how much of the GDP income growth that remains once we take out the contribution of saving more and building more machines, and sending more people to work or sending more educated people to work. Well, that was pretty impressive in the 40s, 50s, 60s, about 2%, sometimes even about 3% a year, which is really a remarkable growth just from efficiency. But in the digital age, it's been hovering around 0.5%. If we can raise that back to 2%, that is a transformative change. That's the kind of change that you should write home about. But so far, the technologies of the digital revolution haven't quite enabled us to do that. There have been other fallouts from this that are really notable and we shouldn't ignore. The US, which is really the heart of the digital revolution, has also seen a very lopsided type of economic growth. And one way of understanding that is by looking at real wages of different education groups, which I'm doing here for 10 demographic groups: men, women, and by education group, high school dropouts, those with high school associate degrees, college degrees, postgraduate degrees. All these 10 groups, both among men and women, experienced very similar real wage growth, a very rapid real wage growth, about 2.5 percentage points a year inflation adjusted, which is really remarkable. Again, if you get that, write home about it. But that stops in the digital era. So from around 1980, median wages grow much more slowly, so the labor market's not doing very well for the average person. But even more concerningly, low education groups are experiencing real wage decline. So that's a really remarkable thing. For about a period of about 35 years, up to about 2015, real wages of, say, non-college man is declining, and sometimes quite sharply. So again, is this just the digital age? No, it's not, but my research says digital technologies are very much at the center of any explanation you want to develop for it. So for example, if you look at now, I'm looking at more disaggregated groups, not just by gender and age, but not just by gender and education, age, and ethnicity. Each one of these circles a demographic group. On the vertical axis, I have the cumulative real wage change from 1980 to 2015-16. You see many of these dots are below zero. These are the groups that are not benefiting a lot from economic growth for this very long 36 years. And on the horizontal axis, we have digital, all of it is digital technology based, automation. So how much of the tasks that these different groups were performing in 1980 have since been automated, and you see a remarkably strong relationship between automation and real wage decline, which explains a lot of the sort of cessation of shared prosperity that I showed you in the previous figure. Now, of course, AI is a post-2015, 2016 phenomenon. This is not, what I showed you is not about AI, but my research, as well as research by others, already indicates that AI is continuing some of the same trends. Here is a picture from another paper I have with my collaborators, which shows that early AI, pre-generative AI, starts accelerating around 2016. But if you look at what corporations are driving that AI growth, those are the ones that have a lot of tasks to be automated. So that's the green is the top quartile in terms of establishments that have a lot of tasks that can be automated. Blue is the next, and if you look at the data in greater detail, you see that these are exactly the establishments that stop hiring or reduce their hiring relative to others. So it is, again, indicating a lot of automation. Have we gotten the productivity benefits from early AI? Again, it doesn't look like that. There isn't much evidence that there's a productivity boom from AI use. Again, it wasn't huge in the 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19. So perhaps it's going to be coming. And indeed, many people expect that it's coming. Some experts on AI anticipate you can reach almost infinite output within 10 years, or perhaps within 20 years. Okay, all right, perhaps within 30 years. The McKinsey report claims that you're going to end up with an addition to global GDP of 3 trillion, or an impact of 15 to 40% increase due to artificial intelligence. Generative AI perhaps adding 7% to GDP, Goldman Sachs' estimate, although they have walked back some of that. Well, my own work on this sort of is more cautious. Essentially, if you look at the tasks that are done in the US economy, a lot of what we do involves interactions with the real world. Construction worker, custodial stuff, manual workers. So right now, those things are completely beyond the capabilities of AI. The only way they can come within the capabilities of AI is if AI improves very rapidly and flexible robotics improves very rapidly, so that AI can be integrated with them. There's no evidence that that's going to happen within 10 years. Perhaps within 20 years, I doubt it. So that part of the tasks are essentially only indirectly and very minorly going to be affected by AI. Here, there are tasks that have a very high level of cognitive judgment and social aspects. So if you're a psychiatrist, you're here. If you're an entertainer, you're here. If you're a CEO, you are here. If you're a professor, you are here. So those tasks can be impacted by AI at some point, especially if AI develops as an information technology. So for example, making you a better CEO, making you a better doctor. I'll come back to that, but for reasons that you're going to see in a second, I think the impact within the next 10 years here is going to be minor. So the big here is about 20% of tasks in the in the economy that are cognitive, that are performed in relatively stable environments, and don't require this very high level of cognitive judgment, etc. So that's still quite a bit, but based on research in other areas, especially computer vision, it seems unlikely that these are all going to be profitably automated within 10 years. In particular, in computer vision, by projecting what we have seen over the last few years, some experts in computer vision estimate that only about 23% of things that can be automated can ultimately be automated will be automated within 10 years. So if you combine those two, you end up with a number that only about 4.6 or about 5% of US tasks are going to be automated or majorly changed by AI. So that's a much more limited number than the kinds of projections that Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, etc. are making. Still important, nothing to be sneered at, but not sort of immediately revolutionary. Perhaps ultimately revolutionary, but not immediately revolutionary. How much productivity can we get from there? We have quite a bit of interesting evidence there from a number of studies, but since time is short, I'm not going to go into detail of the studies. But there are two things that I'll say about these studies that come from a different number of contexts. Both of them useful to think about, actually. One is that it does indeed cost save for companies if they can use AI for the right tasks. It's not amazingly large, but it's significant. About 15% of cost can be reduced by use of AI. But very interestingly, what AI does is that it helps, it's like a remedial thing. Either because it's helping people who are not as good, like for example in writing tasks or customer service, or it's taking what they were doing themselves and it's uniform at some mid-level that if they just copy and paste, they're doing better than they would have done. But it's sort of there is a sort of a gradient about who benefits from AI. Right now, there is no evidence in a number of domains that the best workers are really benefiting from AI. So it is by the 7 bins of how well people were doing. If you look at the top 2 bins, this is the treatment group, this is the control group, not much of an improvement. It's really those people at the bottom that are being pushed up. So if you put these things together, you know, this is the really optimistic estimates. This is McKinsey, this is Goldman Sachs. This would be my baseline. So, okay, fine. This is not to be, in economics, you don't find many things that give you even that much improvement. So this is great, I'll take this. Every industrialized nation and many emerging economies need productivity boosts, so we'll take it. But it's not going to be revolutionary yet. How can we make it more revolutionary, or what are the other barriers on the way? Well, I think AI, if it's really going to live up to that promise, it has to understand the promise, or its designers have to, and we have to understand the promise. So we have to understand what it is that the secret sauce for human decision making. And I would say the secret sauce for human decision making is that we are great social learners. And that's where our capabilities for making good decisions and productive uses of our time really come from. If you compare, you know, humans to chimpanzees and orangutan, you don't, at young ages, you don't see anything distinguishing the humans in spatial, temporal, causal relations, manipulating things, etc. What you see is in social knowledge. Humans are much better at copying others. So we are consummate social learners. People do different things. Somebody does it well, we all learn from them. That's how we become better decision makers. Well, that indicates that for humans, experimenting, doing different things, and learning from different things is key. So if you want to be bad for humans, this is what you want to do. Everybody copying each other. This is North Korea, by the way. This is not AI, but you know, you don't want AI to be like North Korea. Well, who would have thought that or North Korea and AI would have anything in common? Well, actually, they do. Which is that AI pretends to be better than humans. And the way that the Alan Turing Dartmouth vision tells us is, well, it's going to be a better than humans, then we should all be copying it. But that's just the North Korean model. Is this far-fetched? Well, actually, even for much more modest and I would say proven technologies, meaning that we know how to use them, you see evidences of that. So this is GPS. We all love GPS. I wouldn't function without it nowadays. But GPS exactly has that feature, despite the fact that because GPS sends everybody to these minor roads that have low latency, and they all get filled up. So you don't want to follow technologies blindly. That's the North Korean model. That's not what you want. Well, for AI, is there any danger that that's happening? Yes. In fact, it's happening in a very bad way. And one is that, you know, I gave you the example, AI improves human decision making, you know, human productivity or reduces costs. One of the areas where the evidence for that is most impressive is programming. So if you're programming in some you know, common language, Java, HTML, a lot of subroutines now can be done very well by AI. How is that? Is it that generative AI, ChatGPT, etc., understand programming and they know exactly how to take your program and turn it. Well, I wouldn't say so. I think what it is that they now have an amazing library of subroutines. So they can pull from those subroutines and change the parameters according to the tokens that are indicated with the instructions. So how did ChatGPT learn all of these subroutines? Well, websites like this. This is this red one here is an amazing website called Stack Overflow, which has a computer science version and a math version, where if you have a problem, you go and write there, and it is that great social learning hub. You go and you say, well, I want to write this subroutine, but I'm getting stuck. Or I'm trying to prove this theorem in mathematics, I'm stuck. And then people who are really at the top of their game generously spend hours on that website and give you answers, and then those answers are voted up and down, so they're very nicely curated. And that was the kind of information that ChatGPT could use and build its library. But what happens to Stack Overflow? This is the date that ChatGPT is released with the fanfare and saying it can help you in computer programming. Look at the volume in ChatGPT in Stack Overflow. This is Stack Overflow Math. Nothing changes. And these other ones are Chinese and Russian websites where ChatGPT was blocked. So you can see this is really a causal effect of ChatGPT. So what it's doing is that it's actually, because it's homogenizing people's learning, it's really destroying that ability for humans to collectively learn. Now, it doesn't stop there. I think another difficulty with the current AI is that it is really, again, partly because of its ideology or its vision, it's not designed to help humans. So the problem is that, how do we train this AI? We train the AI, we say, we should be very good at answering questions on the bar exam. And then even though it doesn't actually do that well, journalists go around and say, ChatGPT passed the bar exam, which is just like an insanely dishonest thing to say. But if you want to help lawyers, you don't want to pass the bar exam. If you want to help lawyers, what you want to do is you want to provide relevant information to lawyers on cases that they don't know about or they may not know about, and give it in the right sort of way. Well, that's not what it does. It's not what it's designed to do. So as a result, it's not going to be that useful, actually, to lawyers. Not yet. Perhaps one day, if we have a different way of doing it, perhaps. So a couple of studies actually show that in the case of radiologists, even though in the abstract, in some simple cases, it does very well, if you give AI tools to radiologists, they actually start making more mistakes. They make more mistakes because they don't understand which part of ChatGPT is actually useful new information, how to combine it with their own understanding. It exacerbates their confirmation bias, and when actually ChatGPT has useful information, which it does sometimes, they don't use it because they don't understand it. So again, I think we need much more targeted models that are helps to human decision makers. And worse, of course, you can use all of this for obfuscation and information manipulation, which we've seen with social media, and I think we're going to see more of it. But let me actually end by saying, well, I'm criticizing the current path. Is there an alternative? And yes, there is an alternative. And in fact, if we want to look for that alternative, we don't need to look somewhere weird. We can look at the history of computing itself. Because from the very beginning of computing, Turing's vision wasn't the only one. In fact, it wasn't the most important one. That's the only one we remember today, but it wasn't the most important one. The same year that Turing wrote his article on the imitation game, what became the Turing test, this gentleman here, Norbert Wiener, wrote an article saying the current way that we're thinking of developing robots, which he understood where it was going, is not going to be good, precisely because it replicates human action rather than helping humans. And that perspective, independently developed by people like Douglas Engelbart or J.C.R. Licklider, led to most of the very important innovations that we depend on it today. Douglas Engelbart in 1968, for example, in an event which he called the mother of all demos, revealed the computer mouse, menu-driven computers, hyperlink, hypertext. J.C.R. Licklider designed the procedures for the ARPANET, which essentially is a perfect specimen of how you combine human information with algorithms to help people. And in fact, J.C.R. Licklider, both Douglas Engelbart and J.C.R. Licklider weren't just engineers, they also articulated this vision. This is from a paper that J.C.R. Licklider wrote more than 60 years ago, where he says the hope is that in not too many years, human brains and computing machines will be coupled together very tightly, and that the resulting partnership will think as no human brain has ever thought and process data in a way not approached by the information handling machines we know today. That is the vision, except that when he wrote it, it was completely impossible. He was wrong that that would be possible in the next few years, because none of the algorithms, even the internet, the nascent internet that he was designing, are capable of that. Generative AI, I think, is capable of that, but if you develop it the right way, but we're not developing the right way. So I think it is possible to reimagine AI in a way that would be a help to human decision makers, but it needs to have a very different driving vision, not AGI, but human help, not black box architecture, but explainable, understandable things with human, and really prioritize human decision making in social context. So let me, I can give you more examples of a few cases where that sort of serendipitously has happened. Serendipitously because it wasn't actually intending to do it that way. Protein folding we can give as an example, but it wasn't actually trying to do that, because protein folding doesn't improve human understanding, but it still achieved something. So if we actually really try to improve human understanding, we can do much better. And if we do that, I think there is much greater possibility that AI could be revolutionary, but I think we're not going there. And we're not going there, and I don't think the market mechanism by itself is going to get us there. Science has amazing ability to get us somewhere very inspiring in general, but here is the catch. Today, AI science is completely dominated by a handful of companies. In 2003, almost all research in AI was academic. Today, it's only about 15%, and this is mostly influenced and financed by AI companies as well. So AI research has lost its independence, so it's very difficult that it will find a direction different than the ones that Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Facebook, etc. would desire. So that's a bit of a problem. So let me end there, and I'll look forward to your comments and questions.
I'm Nezih Zuncalı. Thanks for accepting our invitation again. I'm the treasurer of Turkish App. We are waiting for your donations, by the way. I have a short question. We talked about the impact of AI in the US economy. What about developing or underdeveloped countries?
Great question, and we know much less about it. But it is coupled with the effect in the US, because if it goes in the automation direction in the US, it will also automate a lot of things that are currently offshore. Like, for example, the India tech sector has some innovative parts, but there's a lot of middle skill part that's about offshore services from the US. All of these could be automated, and that would be disastrous for India. But you could also imagine that AI could become a tool for workers around the developing world to expand their skills, their reach, their understanding, and that would be a very different, definitely a game changer. But I fear we're not going there. The other issue, of course, is that AI needs very different types of skills, and the education systems in many developing countries aren't ready for that. Yes, please.
What's your advice for middle school or high school students for career choice so that they have a job in the future?
Well, selfishly, I think it's very standard, and I'll just say the standard line. Think about what it is that you think machines will be able to do in 10 years, and don't do that. Because it's not fun to compete against machines. And that's exactly what Norbert Wiener wrote in 1949, by the way. He said, robots are just slaves, and any human who competes against slaves will get slave wages. Perhaps I wouldn't go that far, but it's not going to be great. So find out what it is that would be complementary wherever the technology is going. It's just very difficult for teachers to know, for parents to know, for people to know. But also there's another aspect. There's also an ethical aspect, which is that I think from a very early age, children have to learn how to behave ethically and how to behave in a way that's good for them, good for their community in a society so influenced by technologies. I think a lot of our social media ills, for example, are based on the fact that we unleashed this very complex very discombobulating technology on people before they understood what they were doing with it. Well, we've just repeated that with ChatGPT being rolled out in all schools around the world. Yes, please.
Yeah, currently with the new presidency, the executive order, the new president's executive order was to revoke the previous president's AI bill, right? So this is one thing, and the other new investment is coming, 500 billion something, right? So, and what is your projection? And now you are saying bad news. This is
I think it's all very bad news. More investment, of course, could be good, could be bad. On the whole, we do need more investment, but I think AI was not regulated properly before, and now it's going to be completely unregulated. The only thing worse than AI regulation is crypto. So sometimes there are many Turkish fans of crypto. I'm not one of them. Yes, please.
I have a more personal question for you. Is when doing your research, looking at 2 years ago, what you are doing in terms of tool and stuff like that, compared with currently what you are doing.
Yeah, I'm not doing as much on generative AI as I should, because I think there are, if you spend time, there are ways in which you can use it. I did use, ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 very early, mostly to find out how it was working. I found it somewhat frustrating, sometimes useful, but we're all using AI because many of the apps that we're using are using AI. But that's not the same as the right way to become better informed with AI. Yes, please.
So one thing that we were talking about doing different cities. So is that like what we expect to have a dinner, the Iron General AGI, is that like we can substitute this like ChatGPT or like?
Well, interpretability, I think, means very different things for different people. Sometimes, ChatGPT saying, well, I'm giving you this answer because of this, which is self-justification, goes under interpretability. I would use the term legibility, meaning we really understand why in a given specific context AI is doing what it's doing and the best way of combining that with our own expertise. We're not there yet. I don't think any of the current architectures can achieve that at the moment.
Do we expect that the new generation will be advanced by using?
Some people are saying that, some people are saying not.
What are you saying?
I don't know. Yes, please.
Could you talk about four more recent revolutionary technologies? Could you compare the innovation that the internet created compared to AI? Because you touched on it here a little bit. Nobody has to pay for the internet.
Well, I'm a huge fan of the internet. I think the internet was an amazing technology because I think internet is actually a perfect example of human-machine complementarity. What the internet does is that it provides algorithms and protocols for humans to reach collective wisdom of humans in the best possible way. Actually, the early Google PageRank, was an amazing example of human-machine complementarity, because while Yahoo and Alta Vista were trying to find algorithmic ways of ranking things, they said, well, we're going to rank pages by according what other humans do. If more humans go to this page, then we're going to rank it ahead. So, and we got an amazing amount out of the internet, but also we've seen how it can be misused. I think, today we have a real real mental health epidemic, which I think is inseparable from the internet. The internet has become, in various periods, a source of misinformation and illicit activity. So I think the internet is an amazing technology, and some companies and we ourselves have found ways of misusing it. So I think it's a very cautionary tale about AI. So do I think AI is more transformative than the internet? Possibly, I don't know. Yes, please.
We talked a little bit about how AI development is not where we want it to be headed.
According to me.
Yeah. Well, but what do you think would be some incentive systems to incentivize development of AI?
That's a very, very difficult question. I would recommend that the last chapter of my book on power and progress, because I don't think there's a silver bullet. You have to work with a number of different policies. I'm not sure whether all of them are feasible. You know, with the new administration, perhaps none of them are feasible. But I think you have to change the incentives of companies. You have to change the incentive of tech companies. You have to change civil society's engagement with some of these technologies. But I think the most important thing, and that's why I emphasize, you know, you need to have a shift from the autonomous machine intelligence vision to what I've called machine usefulness vision, which is that we make machines useful for humans. Yes, please.
How would you recommend researchers, professors to use large language models and AI technology?
Oh, I think you have to use them as they are, but the most important thing is when we do discover problems with it, we have to share that, and I think the big onus is on people who are working on the development of large language models, about how they're going to develop it, what are the ethical boundaries, and do we all need to sort of go in this direction of huge scale foundation models, or are there ways of using generative AI in more domain specific and controllable ways and smaller scale models? I think actually the performance of small scale or medium scale models is very impressive. They just don't get written up as much. Yes,
From
please.
regulatory standpoint, do you think that Europe's AI Act helping?
The European Union AI
Yeah.
Act? Yeah, I think it has some good elements, but it's also very cautious. You know, I would say the EU Act is a perfect illustration of reactive regulation. Something goes wrong, we react to it. What I'm saying in some sense is that we need proactive. What kind of AI can we imagine that's better for humans? Can we try to get there? Yes, please. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your talk, and it's a privilege to be Turkish in the same citizenship with the laureate. I have a couple of questions about responsible AI characteristics. So privacy, there is a guy who, two MIT students who are co-living in a hacker house, and they have done something with the glasses. They could be knowing the names of anyone in the metro and addresses, and then that connects to social security numbers. So how do you think we're gonna do with privacy and sustainability? It says that total 64 billion right now that they invest in these infrastructures. And then the guy from Lex Friedman conversation with Anthropic, he said that it's possible just one company could be 100 billion. And the energy, clean energy, the portable nuclear plants, are they a solution, or what are we doing?
Yeah, so all of those are excellent questions. I'm going to be extremely brief. I think privacy is a major issue, but I think even more major is what privacy feeds into, which is who owns data, who controls data, and there, I am hoping that at some point tech companies are going to wake up that it's actually not even good for them that they expropriate people's data, because that expropriation means exactly that many other sectors are going to go that same way of Stack Overflow. Nobody's going to invest in high quality data, and these models do need high quality data. So I think you do need people's data rights to be protected. And on the energy, I think, yes, I think the energy costs of these models are still very, very opaque. You know, they are not revealing how much energy they consume. You can try to get some guesses from some aggregate numbers, but I think that's not sustainable. With scaling up that's coming, the energy costs are not sustainable. Now, there may be some energy breakthroughs. We'll see. Let me take one final question, so I don't want to overstay my welcome. Yes, please.
It's so funny. I typed AI just now, and I said, I'm a mental health counselor, and I want to ask a question about AI, and tell me, and I got 10 questions. I will ask one, which I like the most, is, are there potential economic or societal benefits to using AI-powered counseling tools to address mental health issues in underserved or resource-constrained populations?
Well, you know, I can't answer this question because I think you'll be a better position to answer it. I can see, you know, AI being a good tool in the hands of a trained psychotherapist or a professional, that you get better understanding of the conditions or the background. But the way that current path is going is like people are going to talk to AI agents as their therapists. Well, if people are turning to therapists because they have social isolation, I don't know how being shafted to talk to a machine is going to make them feel. So I think we are on a path where it's a social engineering path. Either technology will have to change or we have to change, and we'll see which one. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, of course.
And before we start our networking part of our event, I would like to close our talk. And I would like to extend a thank you to our Turkish Consul General of Boston. Welcome, Didem Hanım, and Santiago from Mayor's Office of Boston. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, everyone. Hopefully, we see you all in our next event. And now we can start networking.
Her şey yasak. Belki o kadar ama
Dokumentin bu altında.